In preparation for this episode, I was
Yeah.
like scouring through the internet to find out how I can add value to the audience who's
Sure.
like actually, producers and engineers and all that.
right.
I went on Reddit
Okay.
and I found some real questions that I
Dope.
wanted to ask you.
Dope.
These are real questions on Reddit. So
Okay.
these are people who are asking these questions.
Okay.
So Earth Ninja on
Yeah.
Reddit was asking, what are your current favorite VSTs
Okay.
and why?
Okay, VST. So now again, I'm a Logic baby, I'm gonna say, or a GarageBand user. So for me, I was on the stock instruments for a long time.
Okay.
So anything that DAW already had in it, I was using, and I was trying to explore and maximize. So at that time, there were only like 4 kits, drum kits, like hip hop kit, jazz kit, pop kit, rock kit, and I think a brush kit or studio kit, whatever that was. But there were those 5, and then there was, whatever stock little synths they had. That's all on GarageBand. But then when you graduate to Logic, they have their synthesizers. So there's this one called the EXS24 that first came out on Logic. That was very unique. And then it's now at its space called the sampler. It's really dope. It's just a Logic stock sampler. But then, like, more on the name side, like, there's a synth called Alchemy that Logic acquired in 2015.
Okay.
Alchemy is powerful, and it has all kinds of tones, and you very you can get into the nitty-gritty of synthesis. It's awesome. And then there's Contact. Contact has a lot more natural sounding stuff, like bigger strings. I have like an Indian, like Middle Eastern kit that's on there that offers me those sorts of textures, so I like that one a lot. And lastly, it's battery now. Like, so there's this, it's called battery for percussion and for beats. And I think those sounds are extra fire on that. So yeah, those have been my go-to VSTs. Because a lot of folks do use third-party VSTs, like Omnisphere or, man, I can't even remember some of these names. But they just, I don't know. There's so much already, like in all of these DAWs, like they have stock sounds. So unless you're like myself, who have like put like 10 plus years into exploring just that one program, like you don't really need, too many third-party plugins to like really like do your thing and get stellar results. Now on the mixing, sound engineering side, that's a different thing.
Tell me about that.
Those plugins. So those plugins are different. That just treats the sound. So that your EQ compressors, those sorts of tools. Yeah, like there are third-party plugins that have some proprietary algorithm or whatever that's creating this color, that's creating this result, that like it might behoove you to save up to pay for it. So like one of them is like the SSL compressor. So you know about the SSL board? So it's solid state logic. That's what Dr. Dre uses, swears by it. That's what like a lot of huge pop hits have been mixed off of this particular board, SSL. So there's like this virtual plugin for it, which is the master compressor. So all of your signal, whatever you have in your tracks, gets routed to this stereo bus compressor.
I see.
And so I have that plugin. That one made quite the difference just by turning up the makeup gain up to like 5, 6. You were like, oh shit. And it's not peaking, and like a lot of the times the stock plugins, they can't handle a lot, so they'll peak easily. Then I got Isotope. There's the Isotope Vintage Limiter. That's my go-to right now, and that's something that offers a lot of punch and a lot of like warmth without again peaking. There's this one called the Oxford Inflator. Again, like it looks very basic, but the results just by putting that on your channel strip, it just the stuff jumps out, like the good stuff. If you've mixed it right, like the good stuff. So a lot of the stereo bus plugins I've been really into. So yeah, to me, like I think third-party plugins when it comes to like the sound engineering side, that might be worth your buck if you do your research. Shout out to 41X, man. He put me onto Magma Tubes by Waves, and this is saturation. So like it's like tasteful distortion. And there's top end saturation and low end saturation, and that's what I realized I was missing. I was like, oh shit, this is how you get that lift. Like this is how you get that punch, and like the sound leaps out of the speakers, versus it just playing. Right. So these little things really do make the difference, in my opinion. I just think it all depends on about the music that you're using, that you're creating.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a lot of value. I love that.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm asking you these questions, because you have 20 years of experience tinkering with these things.
Right.
At the same time, you also went to school to SAE.
Yes.
In San Francisco for this.
Right.
So who better to ask other than that?
Thank you. Yeah.
And then it helps the new producers, because it shortens their time that they have to spend now to learn about this. You've mentioned some great VSTs. They can go Google it.
Sure.
They can go figure it out on YouTube.
Sure.
But you gave them the little seeds.
Yeah. That's like that first taste, man. As we go along here, I'll keep geeking out
Sure.
about this. Yeah. But
Yeah.
hell yeah, like we didn't even get into like the reverbs and things like that. But that's like the nitty gritty, of actual sound production. And I think a lot of it does take, like you said, like research, listening to people's opinions.
Awesome. Yeah. And then, since you mentioned Dr. Dre, I have another question that I found, on Reddit.
Yeah.
Was how does Dr. Dre's 2001, Chronic 2001, sound so crispy?
That is quality audio engineering. That's like the simple answer. And it's a loaded answer just because the level of awareness you have to achieve sonic excellence, I think is rare. So I put Rahman in the same category in terms
like A.R. Rahman?
Yeah, A.R. Rahman. Like I put him in that category of sonic excellence. So he's somebody, Dr. Dre specifically is somebody who is a producer, meaning he's the creative, but he is also the engineer, meaning he is scientifically trained to get the best out of recordings.
Right.
And he spent his whole life in the studio, and he's mentioned many a times that he dictates mic placement and live instrumentation. So the crispiness that person might be referring to, in my opinion, is the actual air in the room. I think a lot of the digital stuff that we have, that in the box stuff, lacks air unless it's like a live sample that's been used, so I'm talking more so about these electronic drum kits like 808s and like like these trunk kits and things like that that like have a very electronic sound. They're synthesized in the box, whereas Dr. Dre has been very adamant, I believe, on using live instrumentation. So that air, when you get to EQ and compress and process live recordings that are recorded with dedication and love, I think you maintain or sonic excellence through decades, because that's something that very few people really put their time into and have an appreciation for, which is why I really love Kendrick or TDE in general.
Right.
Because they I'm biased towards the whole music thing, but they care, and Ali cares. They want to get the best sounding, best quality, make sure everything is top notch, tightened. And I don't know. I feel like that's what makes people special. That's what makes anybody stand the test of time. So I think that's what I would attribute Dr. Dre's crispiness to, is knowing how to mix the air in the room. For sure. With whatever instruments you have.
Very
creates a very warm, bright, fuzzy final product. And also the SSL is known for that. So real quick about hardware, it's meant to be overloaded like that. So when I was at SAE, I remember that we were recording the drum kit for one of these classes, and our instructor told us that you might see the overload sign, the red blink on, every now and then. It's okay if it blinks on and off. It shouldn't lean up against, so those things create this sound, those things make all the difference. So unfortunately, if you don't have that board, there's some things that you're not really going to be able to achieve, in my opinion. You can get damn close, I think, in the box. I think very close. I think 0.05% of people might be able to tell. I can't even tell most of the time. So it's I think that, but I do think that there's this crispiness that they're talking about, the warmth, the impact that I think does come from analog gear and being knowledgeable about audio engineering.
Nice. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. The next question.